red flag for me when I'm talking with a prospective client if they are all about like, how do we scale this quickly? And how do I invest the least amount of time? And how are we going to get this generating profit? Yes, a community needs to do all of those things. It needs to be a viable business. But we also need to make sure the foundation is in place and that we are giving a little bit of time and space to let things grow organically and respond to what your members want so that you're co-creating it with them.
Welcome to No Surprises, a look inside the ambitious, joyful, and occasionally terrifying journey of creators.
Woo-hoo.
We are just talking about community this season, and we just had a lovely warm-up conversation with our guest today. And we were just talking about how you never have to struggle alone. And that feels like that is the basis for all community, Kelsey.
Truly, it is.
Really?
I am super delighted to introduce you to the fabulous, kind, special, wonderful, talented, brilliant Yurii Lazaruk. Laura is a people-first professional unlocking global community potential with strengths in goal-oriented planning, bias to action, problem-solving, and immersive community leadership, a trusted advisor and collaborator with creative vision and interpersonal skills to guide others along a strategic plan. Laura is voice of the community with a soulful and connection-driven approach to community management. She's an articulate communicator with a trifecta of experience in community management, PR, and marketing. She has a lifelong passion for empowering and elevating others. Laura, welcome to No Surprises. We are so happy to have
Laura.
you.
My goodness, I am just delighted. You two are some of my favorite people, and this is so fun. It's amazing. And I love your focus for this season, by the way. Well chosen.
It's been super
Yes,
fun.
yes.
I feel like it's been a really my brain kind of defaults to thinking about problems from like an exploded view drawing. You know, if you were like in watching a Marvel movie where Tony Stark is like rotating the model and looking at it from all sides. That's, I feel like, how we always, for those of you not watching, Mallory and I are doing increasingly dramatic hand gestures. And we've
I would
gone
love to be
from
like, ooh,
Tony Stark to what's the magician guy? The British dude?
David Blaine. No,
in the Marvel movies. Dr. Incredible. What's his name? Doctor Strange.
Yes. Dr. Incredible. I'm like,
Don't have any pop culture reference.
Chris Angel.
I know. Just at the beginning of this, we promised Laura we would not go too pop culture because we all agreed we're too busy for this. But let's get back to it. Okay, so Laura, in our pre-call, we were talking about one of my favorite questions that Mal asks is like, what is a mantra, a work mantra that you really take to heart and use often? I want to start there because I think what you said is the core of community. Will you start by telling the people, Yurii Lazaruk, what is your work mantra, something that you take to heart?
So it's so clear. It's never struggle alone. And I say as my mission is that I'm striving to build a world where no one struggles alone. And that is,
I love that.
Obviously way more than any one person can achieve.
Feels like a deep breath in a sentence. Right?
Yeah,
like we can all breathe a little easier knowing. I mean, this is the whole reason I have a business partner.
Amen.
Share it.
Yes.
It's hard out there.
It is hard. And it doesn't have to be hard. It's hard enough. It doesn't have to be hard and lonely.
Alone. Can you tell us, like, taking a step back, tell us about the career that has formed around this concept for you. Tell us about the work that you do so that people can understand that when we say you are like one of the most important people in community building these days, they can understand what that means. Like, what are you doing?
Well, I have a background in marketing and PR. So I've always loved helping to amplify a voice and especially a mission that I believe in passionately. Now I come alongside entrepreneurs and help them share their voice and their passion and their mission through the power of an online community. So it is my belief that one person and one voice can only be so loud in the world, But when we invite others into our vision of how the world should be or how business should operate, that they then become ambassadors of our mission alongside us. And as we empower them, our mission slowly starts to snowball until it becomes a movement that has the ability to literally change the world or change how people see a particular topic. So, did I answer your question?
Yeah,
Yes.
no, I think that's like a really good distillation of it. A small disclosure is that we have at Week of the Website worked with Laura on some community building efforts. So we get to have a little bit of the insight into that process that you take people through.
Mhm.
But say someone like me, right? Like let's take the like book as an example outside of the Week of the Website stuff.
Yeah.
I'm an author. I'm about to publish a book, or I have published a book. I come to you and say, hey, I feel like I need a community around this. How do you start getting people to think about what that actually means for them and how they make it meaningful to their, this community they're imagining to build?
Excellent question. So I'm going to start at like the 30,000 foot view and ask them why. Why do you need a community? And I have a lot of calls with people, and the conclusion is a community isn't the right way to go about this, or maybe community isn't the answer. So I think that's very important is to really think about the motivation first.
Yeah.
Then the next question I ask is who is this community? Whom are you creating this community to support and how?
Yeah.
And then we make a bunch of hypotheses about what these people might like and how we might deliver on those promises. And then we go and talk to them and we hear from them and we really try to understand, are we on target or do we need to adjust? And then once we collect all that data, we come back, we analyze, and then we start to build what I like to call like the minimum viable community or your imperfect test, and put something out into the world knowing that it's not going to be exactly the way it's going to look a year from then, or it's not even going to be perfect. You're just getting it out and creating it with your biggest fans.
I love that.
And that's how I approach a lot of the projects that I work on.
I love the idea of a slow growth method too with these things and
Yeah.
letting things just start and be imperfect and let them grow on their own, because I think that that's the piece of the puzzle that folks miss all the time, is that you get hyper focused on one way of doing something instead of letting it take you on its own journey, because ultimately that's the whole point of the community, is that it's got to support the people that it's serving. And who am I to say what everyone's individual needs are, right? We can only like sit there and make assumptions for so long before it's like, all right, well, this doesn't matter. In fact, what matters is the feedback of the people we're trying to support. So let's just let it become its own thing.
I love how you shared that. And I would encourage anyone listening to go back and listen to the conversation you had with Megan from Marco Polo. She
Man, you're so prepared.
Well, I thought the way she told her story, it made it so clear, like, this is what community growth looks like. It's organic because it literally is comprised of people. People change. And a red flag for me when I'm talking with a prospective client, if they are all about, like, how do we scale this quickly? And how do I invest the least amount of time? And how are we going to get this generating profit? Yes, a community needs to do all of those things. It needs to be a viable business, but we also need to make sure the foundation is in place and that we are giving a little bit of time and space to let things grow organically and respond to what your members want so that you're co-creating it with them. I feel it makes a healthier and sustainable community.
I think that's like a very hard part of community, as
it is.
Like if you think about community as a marketing initiative, that is scary because it's people, right? Like, I know this is not the right analogy, but I keep thinking about when like people like kids who really want a pet and they're like, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. I'll feed it. I'll walk it. It'll be the happiest dog that's ever lived. And then the reality of what it takes to like maintain and raise a pet and help them be happy and nurtured and stable and secure. It's like, I imagine there's a lot of situations where companies have heard, oh, you know, community is the hot new thing.
Yes,
They go
this is
all
exactly
in.
what I wanted to talk about. I'm like, it's so buzzy right now that I'm even like starting to kind of get the ick from it. And it's because here we are in this world where everyone's turning things into a monetized brand. And like, that can't be your singular driver for community because it is inherently at odds with the best interests of most communities, which is this like supportive, nurturing space, not like a driven down to the dollar. Like this has come up a couple of times in some of the conversations that are going to come out between your episode and Megan's, but it's literally like, right, we need this to be sustainable. We need this to not be losing us money so that we can keep doing it. But what is the actual goal here outside of that? Because if we're just going to say marketing, well, sure. But like that, this is a much different ball game than a social ad, a paid ad. This is continued investment and time and being willing to take feedback. And that takes a lot of brain power, emotional power. And like, if you're going to do it right, do it right. And that's why I thought it was so interesting when you were like, there are a lot of people that I almost dequalify from this because you're like, this isn't the right fit. And I think it's going to happen. I feel like it's going to happen more and more where you're like, well, what's the point of this community? What am I actually getting from it? Are we going to get to a place where it's oversaturated? These are all of the thoughts that have been going on in my head for the last 5 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, is it oversaturated? Like, how are we going to get people to like actually join beneficial communities? Like, I have so many questions.
Well, you know, I love to think about, first of all, that's an excellent question. And I think it's important always to think of it from two lenses, right? Like you've got to put on your founder hat. And let's think about a brand, for example. Your community might serve, what are the goals? Like, why do you have this? Calendly just launched a brand new community. It's in beta mode. I'm a beta member. And obviously the goal there is to test out product features. What do our ambassadors think? What maybe down the line, a community would support their overall customer service team by answering questions in a forum. So that is exceptionally different from a community business that is purely community led. Say, for example, if you had a coach or an author, and then they wanted to create a community around their product, around their signature process, completely different goals. And so therefore, like the whole structure of the community, the way you engage in the community, like every single thing is going to be different based on that very first question I like to ask is, why are you building a community? And whom is this going to support? Those have to be so crystal clear before you even begin to think about anything about the what or the how. Or so there's that piece. And then speaking to what you said about oversaturation, I really believe we are in a different season with community. This is no longer 2020 where we're all home alone and just like looking, oh my gosh, I'll take any community I can get and I'm going to be in there all day long because I'm so bored. We now are in a season where a community isn't meant to be like this chit-chatty place where folks are hanging out, and it is more about helping someone make progress, get an answer, move forward, not struggle, where they can consistently get value. People are back to where they're getting a lot of I mean, we have a lot of options now. We can
Yeah.
be out in our communities. We can have in-person connections, and our online communities need to to adapt.
Yeah.
It's a
Mhm.
fun
I
season.
imagine it's hard to have those conversations with potential community, folks who are interested in building communities with you, to have to kind of talk them through that, not just like value proposition to them, but like what is the value that you are interested in bringing to your community? Because I also think like community can be such an incredible asset to companies when it's built well. But I also think it can be a huge liability, because if you end up bringing people together and you have community leaders that are in there kind of driving conversation, if you decide to like not prioritize that anymore, it's kind of like commitment, right? Like if you're going to build a community, you have to be committed to showing up, to being involved, to staying engaged with folks so that you can keep in a positive environment. Do you feel like in some ways you've become like a little bit of a pre-Cana like beginning counselor of just like, okay, are you ready for this level of commitment?
This is amazing reference. I love it.
There's a lot of mindset work that has to come, and a lot of planning, and who's the
Yeah.
team. And then I also think it's really important. I work with my clients about their own boundaries and
Yeah.
moderation in the community, and how are we going to create a culture? What culture do you want to create? What are we going to do strategically to um, set that tone from the get-go?
Yeah.
And then especially communities that are led by one or two founders, where maybe you're just launching, what kind of rituals can we put into place? What rhythms can we use in our community that support our own ability to manage the community, but also start to create habits?
Mm.
Building engagement in our community isn't this push-pull where you just feel like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I just need you to engage. Your engagement is actually driven by your member making progress and your member receiving value in your community. And it becomes more of an organic process than, oh, let's just get everyone to put this fun GIF in here.
Yeah. I do love, you've always had such a good focus on community as an engine for progress. And when we were working together talking about some of the things that we were discussing, I loved that alignment of like, okay, how do you want your community members to proceed through what you give them?
Yeah.
And I think that that's such a refreshing step out of the marketing mindset of how do
Yep.
we capture people's attention, and really redirects it more to how do we help people make progress. Are there any clients or any communities that you've seen that there are some like really special wins or moments of progress that stick out for you as like, oh, this is why we do this. Like, this is why I love this work.
Oh my gosh. Yes, definitely. And I'm a parent, I'm a mom. So I just have to give some shout outs to parenting communities
Yeah.
and seeing parents who aren't. So Dr. Lynetta Willis has a community called Triggered to Transformed.
Mm,
And she takes parents who are stressed out and not enjoying parenting, and they're in this kind of like find it, fix it mindset with their families, and instead brings them in to start working on their own nervous system and feeling more supported and tackling some of these subconscious habits that are wreaking havoc in our families and all of our relationships, if we're honest. So seeing parents literally become the version of themselves they want to be, who then impact their children and the legacy they're leaving, as well as their own schools and communities. I mean, that lights me up. I could do it all day long.
I love that. I love that.
So,
Um, can I be a little selfish and ask, I think everyone knows this, but I also am a mom. I have a 2-year-old. So Laura and I are at slightly different stages of our parenting while working journey. And I'm really curious about your experience as someone who has been, building your own family community at home and then also building your own entrepreneurial journey. What's your experience been like with that? Like, how have those two things lived side by side in your life and in your home and in your family?
Well, for me, I have focused in seasons. So when my kids were little, I essentially did nothing. I mean, did nothing is wrong, but I wasn't for profit. I was volunteering. I was taking care of my kids. I was building community like all over the place, but in my physical world and community. And it's as my kids have gotten older, so Adrian Spire has written a book called The Accidental Community Manager, which it could be my biography, but I ended up going back to work sort of just because I was in a community. I'm like, they needed a community manager. I'm like, I could do that in my sleep. Like I do that all the time. I'm going to do it. And it was part-time. So I started consulting and people kept coming to me for different things. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were working. Like, can you do this for me? So I was doing a variety of things and just one thing led to another. And we are where we are here. But I should say that it has been the steepest learning curve that one could potentially climb on a like business. When I left working to go to business school, there was no iPhone. So coming back into that environment, I have had to teach
People
myself.
popping up laptops and you're like,
Well,
when you go to school, I'm like, no,
yeah,
I went to school when it was still notebooks and pens.
no, we have laptops, but I think about it like, oh my gosh, so much has changed, and I have taught myself so many skills. I had the best comment when a client of mine, her community manager is adorable and probably, I don't know, she's 25 maybe. And she says, oh my gosh, Laura, when I have a tech question, I come to you. Excuse me?
You're like honored.
You're like, wait, hold on.
Honored.
I was like, but I've had to like keep learning and learning and learning. So that was very flattering.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, to go from like, oh, I'm doing this thing to, oh, I now have a business, an offering, like a specific process I take clients through. Such a transition, but probably really fun.
Well, and we've had to navigate a lot of very challenging things personally, medical stuff. So I just constantly feel like if I could do that, which was said to be impossible, like there is no problem that we cannot solve with just
I love that. That sense of there are no unsolvable problems. I think we slacked that to each other this morning of just like, okay, it's a thing to like deal with, but like all of these things are solvable. These are all like fixable problems. And I think there is like a lot of power's not the right word, but I would say like freedom in realizing as an entrepreneur,
like fearlessness.
No one's your boss. So there's really no one you can get in trouble with. It's really just a matter of what decisions do you need to make to help the situation be optimal for everyone involved. And that's really nice when you're coming to it from other life experiences where the stakes are much, much higher, right?
So true. And, looking back at your trajectory and saying, there's really no time that I could say is like this colossal failure where like the world came to an end. Like,
yeah.
And that can be really, really valuable to put it into perspective for anyone listening. You've solved a lot of problems in the past. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hindsight's 2020. So you always forget what it feels like to be like, okay, this is solvable. So if you're overwhelmed, usually it's a really good sign to not charge ahead.
Yeah.
It's actually take a second.
You have the most calming like energy, Laura. I even see it like in this conversation, the tone and tenor of how Mal and I like engage. And I imagine that's like very soothing for clients when they go into an engagement. Is this intentional? Are you just like, is this just your like vibe all the time?
Well, we would have to ask my husband, Chip Zug, to message him on LinkedIn.
Chip.
Um,
Let's
I will
ask Chip.
say that in our family, we have fire and ice. And,
Oh.
our kids, my partner and I, my husband, and like I'm on the fire camp.
Oh.
So I am a little fiery and feisty, but I also do I want to support people and I
Yeah.
want to encourage them and I want to remind them of like their value and their worth. And I hope that comes across like when I'm chatting with people,
Yeah.
just incredible empathy for what anyone is navigating and belief in them as people.
Mhm.
Is there a community for community managers, like a support group, like for, people who are supporting others all the time?
Okay, so I am gonna like hide in the closet here when I tell you that I'm in like a gazillion billion communities. It's almost embarrassing how many pages of Slack groups I have. Like, you're a community builder and you're like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I think that was on my 3rd page of Slack groups. I didn't get to you.
Oh my God.
But I will say, oh my goodness, I don't even know whom to shout out, but I really love the founders of Talkbase and the community that they've built. I love Yurii, who is Ukrainian, who has just started something called Communough. I don't even know how to say it. We talk about anything other than community. I'm getting a lot of recipe ideas from those folks. I'm
Yum.
really good friends with a couple other community consultants I have on speed dial and just texting them when I have like situations that feel gray and murky. So yeah.
I love that. I heard a tiny rumor, and if we need to, we can have Raina cut this section out. But
Okay.
I heard a little rumor about you. That you were
don't know if I
kissing
heard the
Chip
rumor.
under the bleachers. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
I heard a rumor that maybe you were partnering on some new activities or ventures with another service provider. Obviously I'm very interested in partnerships and hearing about them, but is that something that you want to talk about or tell us about at all?
So I think maybe you're chatting about the community accelerator with Bri Leever. Is that it?
Literally what I just said to you is all I had heard was just
Okay.
that you were partnering with someone. So
Okay, so Bri and I followed some of our advice, which is launch imperfectly and quickly, and not all of it, which is have your full strategy done and give yourself plenty of time. We co-host
perfect.
stop. I reached out to Bri. I should back up. I had a goal in Q2 and early Q3 to share with my people in my newsletter, collaborate. I wanted to show them the value of community.
Yeah.
By creating resources in community.
I love that.
Okay, so a little meta, but what I did is I contacted a couple of people and said, hey, like I really love to create something of value. You can share it with your list and audience. I'll share it. It'll be so much better because we're going to collaborate. So 2 of the projects that I worked on in July have kind of taken on lives of their own. So the first one is a job description for a community manager.
Oh,
it is
brilliant.
A Google Doc. You can just download it, swipe copy. I worked on this with Joel Premack, and then we brought in a few other community industry leaders to give us their thoughts and their feedback. We've now shared it with the world, and we already have Asana tasks to incorporate new feedback, update it again in December. So our hope is that will serve the whole industry. A founder starting from scratch or a company. So that's one
So,
resource.
and that would be like, if someone wanted to bring someone in to be a community manager, this is an example of what their expectations would be for that role, what kind of things that person would do. Is that kind of the gist of it?
I had a conversation with Megan, and she said, oh, I was asked to do this job, and the title was like, be awesome. I don't know if you remember she said that, but she said that when she started her polo. And there's so much confusion about what a community manager does. Are they a customer service rep? Are they a social media manager? We wanted to create like a community industry standard for what a community manager does. So that is created. It will live and breathe. If you have feedback, we will incorporate it.
Cool.
Other thing that you were alluding to, I think, is Bri Leever and I. So I noticed that there's a lot of conversation around moving away from social media and hosting your community on an all-in-one platform that has data security and all kinds of things. And there seems to be this big assent that is a good idea, but the advice that was available at the end of Q2 that I could find sort of stopped there and did not, in my opinion, do enough to show someone what in the heck to do.
Sure.
I contacted Bri and said, we need to create a resource for people because this is a real issue and we need to step in the gap and give people some ideas.
Love
so
that.
we put together a guide, which then snowballed into a workshop, which then we're like, okay, we're going to put the guide together and the workshop. Bri calls herself the community activator. So she moves very fast. Like she's got this in a 4-week plan. I'm like, okay. But anyway, we said, well, let's not let people struggle alone. We're going to build a group around this. So we put into the universe our very first group program ever, which is a 4-week accelerator. Today, in 1 hour, we have our final call. I don't know what the plans will hold. So if you're interested in more groups, Bri and I are open to hearing suggestions for what people need.
Well, congrats on both of those. I love when things spring up organically to fill a real need. Like there's so much time to fill with ideas of what people want that it's so excellent when people start with a seed of an idea that happens, comes up naturally. And I love the simplicity of like, no, we're going to put together a description. That's the project. Like that is beautiful and elegant in its simplicity.
Thank you. Yeah. I like to tell people who are newer in their career and want to like become thought leaders or whatever, that if you can flip the script from from striving to just serving, just wake up and help one person, it takes away so much pressure.
I love that. There's no better place than that to end. Laura, thank you so much for sharing time with us today, for telling us a little about all that you do. We're just delighted to have had you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. This was incredible. I can't believe the time is up.
I know. It goes by really fast, right?
It moves fast. Well, y'all, you can subscribe to No Surprises where you get any of your podcasts. You can also watch this delightfulness on YouTube. Our website is weekofthewebsite.com, and you can also find us on Instagram at weekofthewebsite. And that was episode 9, and we only have one more to go this season. So yeah, we'll be back next week with even fewer surprises.
Thank you, Laura. This was awesome.